Buddy, welcome to our show. You know, aka hanging out with Howie, but it is our show. It is truly our show because I learn more than I give. And before we start the introductions, I should mention our sponsor, our long-term sponsor, DJ Event Planner. That's www.djeventplanner.com. And our other sponsors will be down below when this is published to the interwebs. And I mean interwebs because it goes to like 12, 14 different places. And it's also a podcast, which is doing really, really well. So I want to thank you all for being here. And I'm going to go left to right and introduce everybody. We have Buddy with us. We have Jay with us. We have Boston John with us. Right. And we have Matt with us tonight. So thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. The thing that I wanted to do was, it's, 7 days now since the Ed Sheeran verdict came in, and he won over the estate of Marvin Gaye. Okay? And this is my opinion and my opinion only. And you can all have your own opinions because you're all going to get a chance to weigh in on this. But I think that the grandkids and the great-grandkids of Marvin Gaye, who had his hit in 1953, means it's 50 years old. It took him 50 years old, 50 years to bring a lawsuit. Okay, now that's not a mistake in my opinion. That to me is ambulance chasing lawyers that have supercomputers with algorithms that say, yeah, that melody or that chord progression is, that's pretty similar to my, to this song. And the lawyer goes to them and says, I can make you money. I'll make you $1 million if you sign up with me. If you don't get any money, it doesn't cost you anything. And I think that's what a lot of this does. And in my humble opinion, I think this is a great victory for music and for DJs as a whole, in the way that artists will be freer to, just express themselves. Because look, we've all heard hundreds of thousands of songs, and if you're a musician and you lay down a track, you may inadvertently be doing something you heard in your travels, and it's like, wow, this is cool, and then here comes a lawyer, with a gosh darn computer that says, that sounds like a song that was laid down 50 years ago. Hey, grandkids and great grandkids, I can make you some money. And Ed Sheeran won, as we all know. So, first of all, the first person I thought of, even before the show started, was Jay. You're a musician. You've heard hundreds of thousands of songs. The progression 1, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, 4, and on and on. But you'll hear it in different, progressions and different keys like that. Now, what would happen if you decided, hey man, I'm going to write a song, and then boom, some ambulance chaser comes after you and says, that sounds like a song from 1948. You owe us $1 million.
Well, it's interesting to me because, there's a famous lawsuit behind, I think, the band Truth and Led Zeppelin. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't care if you're Helen Keller. The beginning of the Truth song is identical to Stairway to Heaven. It just is. And it came out like 4 years prior. Mm-hmm. And I think Zeppelin won that suit. It was interesting, especially on this one, because I got to hear Ed Sheeran talk 2 days after this. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what's up with the Marvin Gaye family? Apparently, it was actually the writer that sued him. So it was the grandkids of...
Yes, it was. It was
not Marvin Gaye. It was like Ed Townsend or something who wrote the song.
Right.
But, I guess,
it was the heirs.
Yeah. And I guess why
they didn't know anything about it until a lawyer came up.
Until a lawyer came along and said, hey, we can make some money. Well, apparently Ed Sheeran in court said, because this I know, and I'm sure you know, Howie, and if you don't know this, you can't copyright a chord because that's a freestanding note. Right. That's like saying, I used this brick to build my house. I'm going to sue you if you use the same brick to build your house. Well, that doesn't make sense. You can only copyright a melody because the chord progressions, like you said, there's only 7 chords. Like there's nowhere else to go. Right. Like you can do variances, but a chord is a chord is a chord. So I guess in court, Ed Sheeran on the stand said, there's 1,000 songs that use these chords. I'll show you. And proceeded to play C and A D and whip out like 20 pop songs singing over those 3 chords. And his point was well taken by the jury because I think they kind of realized, it's not, you're going to get these progressions and there's going to be similarities, but it doesn't mean that you stole it. 1. And 2, which I found even more interesting, he said these things are settled oftentimes. And he was on Howard Stern, and Howard Stern goes, what do you mean? He goes, I've settled these before. Some family comes along and says, hey, you stole Perfect from my, uncle, and we're going to sue you. And the lawyers come to him and say, you know what, let's give him 40 grand and shut him up and not go to court. Right. And just settle, because it's easier to settle than get your reputation tarnished.
Right.
So apparently this goes on all the time. People sue. We do it as DJs. John does it on his sets. I do it on mine. You sit there and hear a song and reminds you of another melody. Like I've never listened to John play a rock song and gone, that's in the key of C 135. So it's, C, E, F. Oh, I know what I'm going to play. It's, I've heard a song and I'm like, man, I love that melody. That reminds me of this Black Sabbath song or something else. So funny. You're right, Howie. I mean, it goes on every day as a DJ, play Shake It Off with Hey Ya by Outkast, Taylor Swift and Outkast. They sound identical in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, tempo and energy for sure, yeah.
So you got to draw the line somewhere. I mean, there was a lawsuit with Blurred Lines with the writer of...
Exactly.
Also Marvin Gaye.
Also Marvin Gaye. And that one they lost.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like Drell and Robin Thicke and somebody else. But I've said this not as the angry old Brian, I mean angry old man. I've said this before. If I was a producer today with the way music's coming out, I'd probably sit in the studio and go, give me the Billboard charts for 1974, top 10. Okay, let's take number 3. What's the key? What are the chord progressions? Here's a rough melody. No one will remember this song. Let's just copy it. And you might get caught. You might not. I guarantee, Howie, you could name 20 songs and go, dude, this is this song.
Right.
but they didn't go to court.
We've done that here, where, pick that sample.
Yeah.
But that was going to be another one of my questions, was what you had mentioned was like, when does it freaking end?
I think not because of lawyers, but because of the fact that we as a society, I think I told you guys when Christian Pulse was at the Mech show in Vegas with me, we had the TV on in the background for the news. And after day 2, he just looked at me and he goes, "Is all you people do sue each other?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I've seen 25 commercials for lawyers. Did you get hurt in an accident? Did you get hurt at work? Did you fall down at a casino?"
That's Vegas. That happened on my TV in Vegas.
Yeah, it's constant.
Every other thing was a
law firm. Yeah, and driving in, I mean, I'm going there Thursday. I just got back 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Every billboard is gone from Calvin Harris playing at, Excess to injured in an accident. Mm-hmm. Call this number. Injured in an accident. And I looked at him and I said, that's what we do. Apparently, we sue a lot of people. Well, I told you guys, I have a federal judge as a client. And every time I did her holiday party for like 13 years, I would, at the end of the night, be like, "Hey, quick legal question." It would be something stupid. And one year I said, "Hey, if somebody falls down at a wedding dancing, can they sue me?" And she looked at me and she goes, "Yes." I go, "Wait, what?" She goes, "Yes. They fell on your dance floor when you were playing dance music?" "Yes,
John,
but they can also sue the dance floor."
Yeah, John, and how many times did I slip up there in Lake Placid?
Well, that's because you're basically existing in a sheet of ice up in Lake Placid for 9 months out of the year.
Like that thing can get tossed in an instant. It's like,
but when you went somewhere it snows,
of course you're going to slip.
But with Eric's insurance, let's say Eric had insurance on his employees.
I've never sued it.
No, Howie, you wouldn't. But let's say you would, and I'm not saying it would even go to court. I think the reason that I carry $1 million liability and you carry it and John carries it and Eric and Matt and everyone else and Buddy is just for that reason. It's not going to go to court. You're never going to, even the judge said, you won't ever see the inside of a courtroom, but the individual is going to sue the shoes they're wearing, the floor manufacturer, the hotel, the song, and all they're going to do it for is because they want to have insurance companies come in and settle. I've talked to lawyers about this kind of thing, and they go, "Dude, I'm not going to, if my client fell at your wedding and said, I want to sue the DJ, as I would probably, A, tell them not to, but B, if they were really, headstrong about we're going to sue the DJ, I would start filing papers that because you did your job, this is what happened. It would just make you have to come in with a lawyer who says, that's his job. That's like suing a doctor for malpractice. And what do doctors have? Insurance. And he looks at me, he goes, "Do you have insurance?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "People just want to get some change out of the insurance companies. That's why insurance is so high."
That happened to me. They came after my insurance company. I said, that happened in a different room. My insurance company gave them $5,000 to go away.
Right.
But I wasn't the only one. They sued everybody.
Everybody.
And they got $5,000 from everybody, and they were happy,
Yeah. That's why when I run the world, 4-day work week, bras are illegal, all beaches optional.
Well, there you go.
Bars and liquor 24 hours a day. And people that sue all the time to make money, they're going on what I call the trailer island. It's going to be a huge island of just all trailers. And that's where they can exist the rest of their lives and sue each other out there.
Funny you should say that. During the play Othello by the famous bard himself, Shakespeare, said, the first thing we do is kill all the lawyers. I'm not advocating that by any means. I'm just quoting Shakespeare that, a litigious society, so to speak, really, 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 bogs us down. John,
when it hurts the people that are genuinely hurt, that's the sad thing.
Right.
They get screwed the hardest.
I'll put this out. The song that we're referencing for Ed Sheeran is called "Thinking Out Loud." We've all heard it. We all know what song it is. And I remember hearing it the first time and going, wow, this really has a Motown vibe. And then you listen a little further along, you're like, wow, this really has a Marvin Gaye Motown vibe. It's prevalent. Like, oh, this would, because we think of it as, hey, these two would mix together really great. Then you go on, oh, geez, those two are really similar. Oh, boy. I'm glad that the decision went that, because its lyrics were different because it was the lyricist that went after him, and it doesn't follow the same pentameter, and the meters are different. The music, the vibe, the tempo, within 10 BPM, and it kind of follows the same slow dance song. But there's a lot of them that do that, and
yeah, a lot of them. I mean,
and that's it. Like if we just
a lot of them sounded similar.
Sure. Well, we'll just open another quick can of worms. If you listen to anything that Meghan Trainor does, you'd be like, wow, that's the Supremes. Or that sounds just like, Ronnie and the Spectors. It's like she's taken a lot of that Motown groove. And, how long before someone connects the dots and says, geez, one of your songs is too similar, and she ends up in a lawsuit. I guess the most current example, like Waffle House that just came out, which is Jonas Brothers, it sounds like a throwback to yacht rock. And somebody is going to have a yacht rock song that's, too close. It's like, where do you draw the line? It's like Jay said, you can't own a note. You can't own a chord. Right. And there's bound to be some repetition, but it just can't be blatant plagiarism. You just can't steal it note for note, beat for beat, and rewrite the same song.
Actually sampling, but they may go up an octave, down an octave, or as Jay says, 1, 2, 5, and then
change the progression.
3 to 4 minor chords, and then they change it, during the next one. I mean, it's like, it's getting ridiculous anymore.
Shouldn't it be the spirit, though? Meaning, did you sit down and knowingly, Richie Blackmore famously tells that he took the progression for Smoke on the Water by reversing the progression for Beethoven's Ninth Movement. Dun, 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 dun. It's the same thing in reverse. He's never been brought up on charges by the estate of Beethoven.
Well, because
I would have heard it anyway.
Because it's public domain. And that's another one that I want you guys to get into as a group is, when does it end? Like, we have drugs out there right now, okay? And there are now generic drugs for them that are much cheaper. When does the patent end? When does the copyright end? Shouldn't there be like this Marvin Gaye thing? It's 50 freaking years. Like, shouldn't that end?
I think you get 7 with drugs, and I think you get 70 with songs. Because Happy Birthday just went to public domain recently, like in the last 10 years. I mean, and that was written in the 30s or something, or the 40s.
For the longest time, whenever you would go to, let's say, Texas Roadhouse, they could not sing Happy Birthday to you. They would sing their own version of it and clap to it because they would get charged with a copyright for singing Happy Birthday.
Yeah.
So, what say you, Matt?
I think I forget who said it here, but it really has a lot to do with the spirit of it, or what is it? What was the artist's intent? And of course, when you're in a courtroom, you can't put hard evidence to that. Like, I was feeling inspired, or I was just strumming along, and then came up with this beat here. And
but
I don't know.
Aaron did that.
Yeah.
He did that. He played 40 different songs with the same chord progression.
So that was obviously a wise move and potentially the winning thing there for him. But I don't know where the drop off is, or where you would draw that line from that. And I guess, like you say too, Howie, there's people that are out there just looking for these instances. It's like you're a rich mega star like Ed Sheeran, you have all of these eyes on you. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's get some money from that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, buddy? What's your
I think one of the big things is I'm all for protecting IP. Someone came up with something, and I'm all for protecting that. But we also have to look at how long is that protected for? Like you brought up, Disney is a perfect example. Mickey
I
Mouse.
was going to bring that up.
Mickey Mouse is coming up on his sunset, and Disney has extended that prior. Will they try to extend it again? And they'll have to go to the courts for the courts to approve that. But they already lost a couple things already into the public realm. And those couple things, that's why you had last year before last, the Winnie the Pooh horror movie, is because the fact that all those characters became public domain.
Right.
So will Mickey Mouse become public domain? Who knows? But
Steamboat Willie goes January 1st, 2024.
yep.
Yeah.
So that's Mickey Mouse. So that's the original Mickey that Walt Disney drew here in Chicago back almost 100 years.
Are you from Chicago?
I might be.
Oh,
But it's one of the funny things is that you look at that, and you also look at the parallel to music, and you look at the licensing and contracts and so forth, how bands hold on to those songs. And again, this is the writer of the song was done you said in the 50s, so that's 70 years, 50 years from to 2000, and then you figure 70 years till today, and whenever the lawsuit was done, that is basically a person's lifetime that has been since that song was struck. And who knows how long it took before it became popular. It may took 10 years, may take 20 years for getting popular. But anyway you look at it, it's very funny that it's all about the money. And like you said before, just like someone suing you for falling,
I agree.
it is all about the money. And it's sad. It's very sad.
Most money to litigate.
It's sad. It should not be that way. And again, artists such as Ed Sheeran or any artist, be it Vanilla Ice. Vanilla Ice had his, Ice Ice Baby versus, basically Under Pressure.
Under Pressure.
The riff's kind of similar. That's another song that had that battle back in the 90s. And you can go back throughout time, and you can see that over and over again that you run into this. Some win, some lose. The bad part of all that is that if I'm doing a song, if I was going to make a song, I would try and be as far away as possible. But you only have so many chords. You only have so many notes. You can't not use those notes. Or you can't come up with a new note or it'll sound off.
It's math. It's math. There's only so many ways you can add up 2 plus 2.
This is the battle. This is the battle that and I don't know with the other thing is AI coming into the battle, 10 years, 15 years from now, will AI look at stuff and will there be more litigation? Will there be more, people being dragged into court because you sound too similar to this?
What worries me is something you mentioned about Disney. Disney is a huge corporation, and they could sue you. Look at your income and say they cannot survive a lawsuit because we're more powerful, and people will acquiesce to them. But Disney stole, Beauty and the Beast. They stole Pinocchio. They stole Cinderella because it was in the public domain, and then they copyrighted it. They
made their own character, because when they made their own character, made their own spin on it, they made it unique, and then reinvented that character. And got all this.
They're powerful. But the second question I want to ask is, do you guys think this is a good thing that maybe artists now will feel a little bit freer to go ahead and, as Jay, for an example, okay? Jay, you're a musician. If you were to lay down a song, and go, wow, this is really cool, because you've heard hundreds of thousands of songs, would you be afraid of being sued by these mega corporations that have more lawyers than you have money? That's a real threat to independent artists.
Well, and I think the model has changed so much. Like, you're going to see a lawsuit from Motown, excuse me, because they have a product. They can point at it and go, look, we did this in 58. There's a 70-year copyright. We have something we can show. That's back in the days of labels. Now, if I wrote a song tonight, I guess I'd put it out on Spotify and see how it got traction, but I won't get paid for it. So I almost think you're going to see the other extreme. I think you're going to see new artists go, screw you, I'm not tied to a label. I don't have lawyers, so what are you going to really do to me? I don't have any money. Go ahead and sue me. I'm still going to put out, put out a punk album.
I don't have any money, but I have 8 cars in my driveway.
And a plane, yeah.
A plane.
But I think the business model's changed so much. And I think that a lot of artists, you see how many artists this year are saying adios. Kix just announced it, Aerosmith just announced it. I'm sure there's probably 10 more that by the end of 2023 are going to go, yeah, I might play a festival here and there, but as far as going on tour, and why put out new music? Billy Joel's managed to have a career for the last 30 years. He hasn't put out an album. Yet he sells out Madison Square Garden every month, but yet he's kind of figured, why bother? I've done what I can do. Yeah. I just think it's so hard for new artists to try to start in a world where technology rules. And like Buddy mentioned, AI. I think AI is going to make it insane. If I wanted to write lyrics, why not just give AI Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven and go, write me something like this in the same cadence? Because I know I've got this cool little finger pick thing.
And then there would be a lawsuit that, oh, you stole this or that. Yeah.
And now how is AI going to play out in court? Is AI public domain? Is it just,
how do you press charges against AI?
Charges against something I didn't do.
Well,
I used something else to do it.
Whoever put it out as
I'm sure somewhere in the fine print, that little box I clicked says you agree to not sue us because of whatever. Right. Somebody asked me about a music service that's, I hate the word technically illegal, the expression, because I think you're kind of, they don't go well. So we'll just say there's a music service that's illegal.
Yeah. As soon as somebody says that, I'm like,
right. It's like, okay, it's more illegal than not. But one of the things I noticed when I signed up for this service about 10 or 12 years ago, so that might tell you who it is, one of the things they had in their agreement that's very clear, almost bold, is you are agreeing that you presently own the music you are purchasing, you are paying not for the song's music, but for the remixer's version.
Yes. I know exactly what
right.
you're talking
And in the real world, if I own a copy of Marvin Gaye's song and I go to a website and I pay Howie $250 and Howie gives me a remix of it,
right,
everything's okay as far as I can tell. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and
then I would have to pay Marvin Gaye's estate.
Technically, yeah, you'd have to pay for the rights for you to use it. Right. But I don't, that's covered in my promo only, I guess, or when I shop at Best Buy or however music's done. I was told, I wish Nick was here again, but I was told that technically if you quit DJing and you have a promo only subscription, that somewhere in the fine print, you're supposed to send it back. Now, that sounds insane, but I know you're not allowed to sell a promo only disc to another person. But I thought somewhere it said, if you quit DJing, you need to surrender these discs because of the copyright on them. That might have been wording that kept them out of trouble with ASCAP and BMI. I don't know.
Boy, I got to tell you, Nick is one hell of a guy because he gave me a lifetime subscription.
Right, but that's as an active DJ. I'm saying if you suddenly announce tomorrow you quit being a DJ, I was to understand. No, on the CDs.
I told him my circumstances, that I wasn't doing weddings or, just small corporate stuff. And I'm concentrating on, production. And he goes, I got you, brother. I mean, Nick's, if you're Nick's friend, you're Nick's friend forever.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
And he goes, I got you, brother. You are grandfathered in forever. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? He goes, nope. Come on down. I was like, you got to be kidding me. He goes, yeah, come down and visit with me and Britt. He says, I'll show you Nashville. I was like, wow. So I am considering, like, that would be kind of a cool summer trip to go down to Nashville, But
yeah, I'll look into this on my end. I may very well have it wrong, but I could have sworn in the beginning it was a promotional thing. Back in the 90s when I first got it, and it was like, hey, and if you quit being a DJ, you need to return these. Back then, you had to fill out a thing stating you were a DJ or you couldn't buy them. So it's not the pool, it's the disc.
He knows me for, and everybody knows I'm 70 years old, but he goes, dude, you're good for the rest of your life. And I was like, wow, man, thank you, brother. Like, how cool is that? Like, how cool is it? Like, what a community we have here of people that would take care of each other like that,
Guess what? I was right.
Okay.
None of the music and videos received by licensee, which is us, can in any way be sold, rented, duplicated, broadcast, or removed for play at any restricted location. Licensee violates any portion of this agreement, the licensee's rights immediately terminated, and all music and video must be returned to promo only upon demand. So that's the part I must have worked into if you quit being a DJ.
Wow.
You got to go back.
If you violate the agreement you've made with them, they can demand their product back. Wow. I mean, none of us ever got a CD from them thinking, oh, I'm going to screw these guys over. And I bet if you call Nick right now and say, hey, I'm quitting DJing, do I owe you back my music? And he'll probably say, no, you don't need that. No, it's all good, dude. It's yours. But I think what I was confusing was that if you were to violate their agreement, that they could then demand return of the product. Everyone's got a lawyer, I guess, huh, Howie?
Oh, Nick, you froze.
Howie's frozen.
I was like, I can move.
I know that's what we always do when everything freezes up. Like, it's not me. How do we end the show without the stop button? Is this how the Twilight Zone begins? We're still here 2 years later.
I don't know how you could write a song or a melody or anything like that without being influenced by.
We have to be.
I get what came before.
Yeah.
Is anyone else surprised Bruno Mars hasn't been sued? And he probably has, and he's settled. He's written about 10 songs that have such a heavy funk influence. You just imagine someone's hearing Uptown Funk going, oh, 24 Karat Magic. Oh, where's B-side to a
James Brown?
Song.
Yeah, where's James Brown's family coming forward?
There's the Silk Sonic stuff, the new stuff, the Silk Sonic stuff he's written. If you listen to that,
super funk. Yeah,
it's.
But I think like he's taking enough from different artists that it becomes this like, instead of just using sugar and cinnamon, going, oh, we already made a cinnamon roll. He's like sugar, cinnamon, paprika, salt, pepper. He's taking every spice in the cabinet,
every funk element
throwing it in a bowl, and going,
blend it. Puree.
Yeah, here's the Cool and the Gang hook. Here's a Son from the Commodores. Here's a little Motown. Marvin Gaye.
Yeah, he's a hard one to pinpoint to like a certain artist because he sounds like so many. Because funk was broad. You had Parliament, George Clinton, and Marquez and OJ's. I mean, he gets a little bit of stuff from everybody. So,
oh yeah, but he's enough out there that I agree with you. I mean, it sounds like a million different things, but you can't be sued by a million different people going, no, this is our song. Then they got to go amongst themselves and figure it out, you know?
Well, the other thing also you could look at is with any of these artists today, you know, usually it's about a 3-year to 5-year window they have that they can sue back. Someone can come back. AI right now is getting some traction. So a few years from now, who knows where AI is at? If someone doesn't grab hold of AI, program an AI, and say, hey, go through these songs, listen to these songs, see if there's anything else similar to it. And they start seeing these similarities. And also you see a big wave of litigation between, artists and people who are representing the estate of an artist.
Well, they've had that plagiarism programs in colleges for like 15, 20 years. They've had programs that will run a paper, and if it's a published quote, if you've used a sentence from a book or a published work, it will flag it. So either they haven't done that with melody, and they don't have an algorithm to figure out this melody is exact. I remember the first time I heard, Ghostbusters against Huey Lewis, and I'm like, yeah, they're close, but
close-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, like it didn't strike me as this is a lawsuit they're going to win, and they won. Like, oh geez, they did win. Like, I'm really surprised because I didn't think it was that close. I pointed out there is a chord progression from an Aerosmith, the one with the drums, John on Rocks, da da da, and then it goes in a da 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 da, Licking a Promise. And I sent you a thing going, hey, check out this. I don't know if it was Gojira or Slayer or somebody, but it's on the text. We can find it. No, they do the exact da 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 da, but that's it. They stop there, and that's the end of the song. And it's like, but what you can't really say, Aerosmith, you should see these guys because for 10 seconds, not even like 7 seconds, they took the exact same chord progression. Well, that's like a sample at that point. And that's the other question we didn't touch on. Where do you go with samples? I mean, we know about the famous lawsuits, but how many times has somebody been sued over a piece?
Sure, I'm sure it's settled out of court, or it's. Yeah, but that's more DJ producers like, oh, we'll get this really cool sound, and where did it come from? Where'd you get it? Who did it belong to? What record is this from?
Here's a question: does anyone know if Daft Punk's ever been sued?
I don't know. They have.
I don't think. I mean, I can Google it, obviously, but I haven't heard. Nothing in my brain says, or that I've heard. Yeah, they got sued once because they're the king of samples. I mean, every song they have is a sample. So
more time is
they either secure the rights, or, I mean, the old myth was that Offspring paid Def Leppard like 10 or 20 grand to use that beginning of Pretty Fly for the White Guy. So maybe a deal was struck like, hey, we'll give you 2% of the record, or hey, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. And then you hear these stories of people coming in for free and just going, oh, I got some chords here, take these. Like back in the day, it was no big deal. Whereas today, there's no money to be made. You got to latch on to every dime you can. And let's face it, you're making money on tour and on merch. Do you really want to go in the courtroom? You really want to take time off the road and pay a lawyer? I would think that would be the last thing you would want to do. And to Howie's other question, yeah, I think people will back off stuff and go, hey, man, what do you think of this? Oh, it sounds a lot like this. Ooh.
All right. Well, the Ed Sheeran thing was really a strange situation because if his song did nothing, there'd be nothing to talk about. But that song was huge, and that song was the top of the charts and top 10 for a long time, and it's still getting played at weddings. It got noticed. But if it was the B-side of Some Lost 45, they're like, well, whatever. It kind of sounds like my song, but it didn't go anywhere. There's no money to be made. There's no water in the well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is that if you look at every one of these big lawsuits, they're all big popular songs. They're stuff that's hit high on the charts and been popular for a long time. So they look at it as a cash cow. Yeah, they're going to go after that cash cow. And again, I understand protecting IP. You design something, you build something, you came out with something, you made this song, you made this widget. whatever it is you build.
Right.
I understand you want to protect the IP, but like Howie also said, when is that sunset? When do we get that relief and say, hey, this is now open source?
Well,
Medication
would
or whatever.
Wait years, because if you wait years, it only gains in value. The medication issue is very simple. When you put out a new drug, you put a patent on it, and the patent's usually 7 years. That means you can't come after it with generic, and that's simply so the company can recoup its R&D work. But the second that 7 years is up, you get 100 companies making, Roxy set. Roxy set and Roxadan are Percocet and Percodan, and they're made by a company out of New Jersey. Those are the generics for the brands. The company's name is Roxy. They just put Set and Dan after their own name. That's what drug companies do. They go by the chemical formula name, or they come up with another name, hoping that name will be big enough that you can go, oh, I need to get some Roxy, meaning now you're skipping getting Percocets. You're actually looking for the generic. And again, it's a game of numbers. The research and design might be $1 billion to come out with a new antidepressant. Well, you got to make your money back on that. You got to break even at some point. You're in business to make money. And you only have a small window before it stops being your drug. Then it becomes somebody else's.
That's a job of every single business, including our own businesses here as DJs. We're business owners. Our businesses are there to make money. That's what they're there for. To pay bills the business has, to pay salaries to the employees, be it one employee or 100 employees or 1,000 employees or 1,000,000 employees. The business is there to make money.
Right.
It is there
I think we're all right. I think we're all on that same page. I think the bigger concern and issue right now is how are we going to kill the recording of this show?
I'm working on that as we speak here.
Okay.
So I'm behind the scenes, the Dark Star.
Okay. I thought you would be, but I figured I'd at least throw it out there.
We've gone 45 now. If we go an extra 15, it's the full hour, and then we pull the plug and.
I think at that point we physically all leave the chat.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious, because that should shut the recording.
Shut the recording down.
Yeah. So everyone, if that's the case, we'll all be in agreement that we all
shut it down and come back in.
Button, and then come back if you want to chit chat. But that would
next week for more. Oh, okay. Howie, figured out how to get this thing shut down.
Joining us right now on Disc Jockey News in the overtime session with the chill room.
It's been 23 days. I haven't eaten. We're still in the room.
This is what we all talk about here about music, about information. It's great sharing information here, and you guys all. It's. I love the not only just the friendship we all have, but also the amount of information we can get from each other, and all the bits and pieces of how we learn. And that's a great thing about here in the chill room is that. Everyone here has something to contribute, and we learn so much and talk about stuff like this all the time.
Well, I think it's as the economy becomes more fragile of music, you're going to have two camps. You're going to have, I'm still creative and want to be creative, so I'm going to keep promoting myself and do what, 9 Inch Nails did and what a lot of bands have realized. Tool, I think, did it. You're just going to release your music independent of anything to your fans. If they like it, you're in hopes that they'll spend $100 or $200 on a ticket, or you try to be a Taylor Swift, which is in her own ecosystem doing her own thing. I mean, I know Boston, they had to reroute the trains to satisfy her show. Hey, Howie.
Wow.
Hey, Howie's back. Yes.
She sold out like 4 nights at Gillette Stadium.
It just notified me that the recording is still in progress.
Yeah, we're living large here, living the dream.
We decided, Howie, that if you didn't make it back within the hour, we were all going to click leave.
I messaged John.
That should shut the recording.
And let me see who is. Oh,
who did it assign host to?
Nobody's co-host.
The host.
Well, the host is the sponsor, and how
the host is the sponsor thing. So
we're okay now. We're good. You can give us 15 more minutes.
But,
yeah, we're good.
thank you so much for covering for me. This is odd here. We're having some storms and whatnot. And
This is the real world. This is what happens in the real world.
Yep.
no, but I could hear you guys. I was just frozen, because I couldn't transmit out. But you guys all made great, great points.
While you were frozen, I called my lawyer and I'm suing, and I think that might be part of what we're going
It could be Marvin Gaye's estate coming after us for talking trash.
Yeah.
I think I might have said, something you said before, like, you're only as good as your last gig or something.
There you go.
And they said, oh, wait a minute, Jay owns that copyright. Yeah.
I told you what I wanted to do for NAMM next year, and no one, maybe you guys will have the same reaction. I wanted, because the NAMM is a copywritten logo. I said, for our shirts next year, let's put NAMM, like in caps, similar font, get permission, and then put a stay after it. Because out here, everyone's big on like namaste, and I'm like, oh, let's have namaste shirts. And everyone just looked at me like, I don't get it. What does that mean? I'm like, am I really the most enlightened guy here? The oldest one in the room is the most enlightened guy.
You're the only one doing the yoga.
Yeah, I'm like, we have a namaste. How about namaste? Like Pioneer DJ presents namaste.
Yeah. If we were off air, I'd say something pejorative about that statement.
I might just make my own. My wife's bought a cricket thing. She's dying to make T-shirts.
I think it's a little bit, weird.
I might even get a "You're only as good as your last gig" and wear it to Expo.
Well, that's good too. Rather than the long-haired freaky
That'd
people.
be even better. Yeah.
Yeah. Or,
So,
sorry, I already played Bad Bunny. You missed it.
So- anyway, I guess we should end this now. We're coming up on 50 minutes.
Look at us go.
So, hey, thank you all so much. Thank you for covering when I froze and my internet went out because of the storm. And we will see you next week. Ask questions down below in the comments when this is published, and we'll cover whatever topic you want. And Jay can talk a half hour on it if you want to.
Sure.
And the other half hour, Brian can shake his fists at the sky. So
There you go.
anyway, good night, folks. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it.